Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I'm going to talk about the whole Bundy standoff and about Bundy in general and about the larger issues at play. For those of you who aren't familiar with what's going on, you have a rancher in southeastern Nevada. He was ordered to remove his cattle from public lands. And this was back in 1993. And due to his failure to remove his cattle, fines were imposed against him and court orders were issued against him. The fines total up to $1 million. And this man refuses to pay the fine. He refuses to remove his cattle from the property. And an agency called the Bureau of Land Management. They're responsible for managing public lands. So agents from that particular agency and other agencies, other federal agencies, came to the property and they began to remove the cattle from the property. And as a result of federal action, a lot of activists, right-wing activists, mobilized and they held an armed protest against the federal government. Now I'm going to show you a couple of images from this protest so you can see it for yourself. And then I'll continue my commentary on the other side.
Hurry, get me in and Bundy.
Protesters flooded this federal holding pen area aiming to release Cliven Bundy's cattle.
Push him back up off the gate for right now. Let me work with you and you. I'll allow you two to come in with me. That's
no,
it.
It's the people or not, and you guys need to leave.
To push these people back so they can do it safely.
Federal officers tried to bring the Bundys over the line to negotiate. But after Dave Bundy was already arrested once, he was fearful it would happen again.
I'll give you my honest word right here. I'm gonna walk you in so you can negotiate with your father up top.
Walking past armed BLM rangers, the Bundys started talks about releasing the cattle and calming the crowds.
But what I need you to do is to keep this crowd calm,
I will do
above and below.
The incident commanders agreed to release Bundy's cattle, but say ultimately it's not their call.
So on behalf of the United States federal government, I cannot authorize you to release those
Understood.
cattle.
Metro Police were on hand to keep the peace between protesters and the BLM, but Metro leaders say they wish it had never come to this.
We had a lot of fears of individuals being shot, individuals being trampled, individuals being run over on the highway. So it took a lot of resources for the taxpayers associated with this.
Bundy's cattle are back to roaming public lands, but it's still unclear what consequences the Bundys could face for opening that gate.
Okay, so you saw armed men in a standoff with the federal government. And the federal government essentially had to back down. They gave this man back his cattle. And, for now, for the time being, the federal agents left the property. And all of a sudden, this man is being hailed as some kind of hero. This man, Mr. Bundy. He's being celebrated by right-wing Republicans, Tea Party crazy people, and misguided black libertarians. They're hailing him for standing up to the federal government and refusing to pay fines. This man is not a hero. In fact, he's a deadbeat. Court orders were issued against this man. He refused to pay his fines. He refused to comply with the law. He is not a hero. He's a chump. And to make matters worse, this man is actually a racist. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But for now, let me just focus on a couple of points. People are rallying around this man for a couple of reasons, but I want to highlight one of the main reasons behind this mobilization, this support for this man. And that has to deal with the fact that we have a black president in the White House. Those activists, those people that were out there protesting, they cannot stand the fact that we have a black man in the White House. And that's just a fact, because a lot of these people are Tea Party supporters. And the Tea Party emerged shortly after President Obama was elected. And many of those Tea Party activists have a racial animus towards black people. If you look at their demonstrations, you will see all the symbols of hatred in their demonstrations. You will see Confederate flags. You will see racist signs depicting the president as a monkey, as an ape, as a witch doctor, as a terrorist. All kinds of despicable racial and racist imagery decorate those ridiculous spectacles called Tea Party rallies. So there's a lot of racial animus behind these Tea Party wackos, these Tea Party crazy people, and these militia people. You know, shortly after President Obama was elected and he started to implement healthcare reform, you saw a lot of these people at demonstrations armed. You know, unprecedented numbers of armed demonstrations in the United States. And today you have an increase in hate groups around this country because we have a black man in the White House. So people are all excited about this white, racist redneck standing up to the government. And it's despicable. And, you know, as I said before, we're going to go into a little bit more information about this man. But let's be clear about a couple of things. If this man was a black man, he would be dead or in jail right now. If those demonstrators were black, they would be dead or in jail right now. All we have to do is look at history to verify this fact. When the Black Panthers stood up to the police and demanded self-respect, when they stood up for self-defense, and when they tried to set up free breakfasts for the children and health care centers for the children, the police attacked them. They shot up their headquarters. They invaded their homes and killed them in the early hours of the night, the dark hours of the night. They murdered the brother Fred Hampton. They killed brother Malcolm for just speaking up, you know, not even engaging in any kind of armed demonstration. They killed the brother for speaking truth to power. They killed brother Martin Luther King for doing the same thing. So that's how they deal with black people. So if these people were black, they would be dead or in jail. Let's be clear about that. If those people in Nevada were Arabs or Muslims, they would be in Guantanamo Bay right now. They would be subjected to rendition. They would be subjected to enhanced so-called interrogation, which is nothing but torture right now. So these people benefit from white privilege. And they also benefit from the fact that we are approaching an election. And I'm sure that that's factored into the government standing down, because they don't want to have an incident that inflames the right and motivates the right to come out strong during the election. So I'm sure that that's probably a part of the reason why the government stood down as well. All right, so let's go into the rest of this presentation. This man, you know, as I said before, is part of this Tea Party thing, a part of this, you know, this whole militia movement in this country. And I talked about how, you know, racism is a big element of that whole movement. And this man, it turns out, is what we expected him to be. He's a racist. So I'm going to show you this brief interview of him making all kinds of racist statements. So check this out, and I'll provide my commentary on the other side.
Know about the Negro. When I go through Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and I would see these little government houses. And in front of that government house, the door was usually open, and the older people and the kids, and there's always at least a half a dozen people sitting on the porch. They didn't have nothing to do. They didn't have nothing for their kids to do. They didn't have nothing for their young girls to do. And because they were basically on government subsidy, and so now what do? They abort their young children. They put their young men in jail because they never learned how to pick cotton. And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves picking cotton, having family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy? They just transferred it, that's all. Yeah, they didn't get no more freedom. They got less freedom. They had less family alive, and their happiness, you can see in their faces, they weren't happy sitting on that concrete sidewalk. Down there, they were probably growing their turnips. So that's all government. That's not freedom.
Okay, so you heard his statements. This man actually had the audacity to wonder if black people were better off being slaves. Better off being slaves. I mean, how demented can one be to ask such a ridiculous and absurd question? There's no way in hell any reasonable person will believe that we were better off during slavery. We weren't better off having our women raped and brutalized. We weren't better off being whipped with whips and held in shackles. We weren't better off during slavery times. We weren't better off when they separated the family, sold the children to different plantations, separated the husband from the wife, sold the husband, sold the wife to different slave owners. The family wasn't stronger then. We weren't better off being treated like animals, being deprived of the right to read, being deprived of an education. We were not better off. And it's just insane to me that someone would suggest such a thing. You know, in his whole interview, he relied on a lot of ridiculous stereotypes. He didn't talk about all the black lawyers and doctors that we have today. He didn't talk about the black professors, black politicians, the black scientists, the black CEOs that we have today. Instead, he wanted to focus on negative stereotypes about black people and use those stereotypes to essentially say that we were better off during slavery. That's insane. And that's a reflection of the insane mentality of the Tea Party and these right-wing militias. We need to wake up, people. We really need to wake up and just reflect. I mean, would we be prepared to defend ourselves while we sit here and argue over foolishness? These other people are preparing. These other people are preparing.